Hello, everyone. It's Tiana S reporting for Kids First. And today, some of my colleagues and I are speaking with Box Office Pundit, Mr. Scott Mendelson. Come on and join us.
Hi, it's lovely to meet all of you. I'm always excited when I get a chance to corrupt and or warp and disillusion young minds, or some combination thereof. Spoiler: they were corrupting me the whole time. Anyway, um, I mean, when I do these things, I like to talk about what are your interests in terms of films you like writing about, films you watch just for pleasure, genre, what have you. But the other thing I live kind of in a bubble. My children are not that pop culture curious. My middle one's sort of the closest by default. He likes the monster verse. He likes kaiju films in general. Um, and they're all into anime in one form or another, but they always seem to grow out of a kind of anime just before the big movie comes out. So I was like, no, wait. You could be useful for like 2 more weeks. But no. Um, Anecdote, and then I'll ask questions. I took my daughter, and this was God 4 years ago, to the opening night of Demon Slayer the movie in April 2021. She liked the show. I did not watch the show. The joke I made is that we were going to go see it, and I was going to spend the entire movie doing to her what she always does to us when we watch movies, which is what's going on, what's happening, who is that character, why are they doing that? But it was such a crowded screening that I couldn't do it. So I just sat there for the first hour having no clue what was going on. People talk about, oh, it's hard to get into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You haven't seen all the movies, or it's hard to watch the Downton Abbey movie if you haven't seen the show. No, those are easy. This was The pictures were pretty. um, and there's another Demon Slayer movie coming out in September that my youngest son is now interested in. I'm debating, like, do I do the homework this time, or do I? How do I put this in a non-vulgar way? Um, Commando? Yeah, is that the right? I don't know. Point being, do I try to go uneducated again, because that was sort of part of the thrill the last time. But anyway, um, okay, I have to ask, regardless of what you all think of it, are there people in your peer group that aren't otherwise into mainstream theatrical cinema that have seen one or more times the Minecraft movie?
Yeah,
Is that,
definitely.
yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
are they seeing it because they want to see it, or because they want to throw chickens and popcorn at the screen, or is that just an online inflated thing that doesn't happen all that often?
Um, I think my friends who have seen it more than once, I think they're just there to like throw the popcorn and blow the air horn when Chicken Jockey comes on.
It's my son. He is, a fan. He was, we went to a press screening, so everybody was relatively polite. I had very little knowledge of the game beyond tangential. My children are playing it while I do something else. And when the chicken jockey scene came on, I thought, oh, that's cute. That's an adorable looking creature and a riding a chicken like a horse. That is funny. Layperson that has no knowledge of the game finds that clever. Good for you, movie. Because one of my ramblings is always that when you're doing an IP, intellectual property based picture, you need to treat that as sort of the bottom and then build from there and create entertainment value for people that don't give a darn about the brand or the franchise. The example I always give are the Jumanji sequels that Sony put out in the late 2010s. Which, did I care about Jumanji? Absolutely not. Was that film anything more than an of the moment 30 years ago hit, back when special effects of that nature were less common and Robin Williams was doing one of his first kid-friendly movies this side of Hook? Yada yada yada. No, but that film, I like the cast, I like the director. It was a fun premise, having them stuck in video game world where all of these larger than life movie stars were sort of playing against type. And I will always argue that that was an example of doing it right, where they created a package that was appealing regardless of the franchise. Little did I know that that scene that in my head was like, oh, this is them doing the job and putting up neat things on screen that mean nothing to me, was apparently the pop culture zeitgeist moment of the year. And then I'll shut up. That's great, because I think one huge problem right now with Hollywood, for a variety of reasons, is that they keep trying to make reboots, revamps, revivals of franchises that I liked. And they keep wondering why people your age aren't showing up. And the example I always give is when I was a kid, I took my parents to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. This is 1991. I'm old. I took them to Karate Kid Part 3 in 1989. I kind of knew they were terrible, or at least not as good as the previous ones. And I knew my parents were suffering, but that was okay because they're my parents and it's part of the job. I feel now it's like completely opposite, where generically speaking, I can't speak to your experience, where like your parental figures are like, come on, kids, let's go see Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. It was like, I don't care. That was popular 30 years ago. It's like, why don't kids want a legacy sequel to The Exorcist? I don't know, maybe because they don't give a darn about The Exorcist. So when something like a Minecraft movie or Five Nights at Freddy's, or relatively speaking, Paw Patrol, or even a modern novel like It Ends With Us, which I don't know how kid skewing that is, but it's certainly not something that's banking on nostalgia. It's like, yes, that is what's going to get the industry some semblance of a recovery. And there should have been a question at the end of that, and I apologize. Okay, here's a dumb question. What is a franchise or a source material? It could be anime, Wattpad, but video games that I've never played. If you were running a Hollywood studio, you would say that needs to be a movie.
A good question.
I was actually thinking about this. It's like a claymation movie, but I wanted it to become like a live action, if that counts. And I think Coraline should become a live action movie.
Oh yeah, I agree.
I saw that when I was 29. Well, 28, not quite 29. And I did attend the re-release with my 5-year-old niece, because I saw that right when it came out back in early 2009, and it was the best 3D I had ever seen in a cartoon. And I remember personally, for me, the third act felt like this weird lucid fever dream that I can't possibly explain, but I've never had that feeling in any other movie ever before.
Yeah.
And as someone that liked, and I always mispronounce the studio's name, I apologize. I think it's Lakia. I love Paranorman. I love the Box Trolls. I love Kubo and the Two Strings, Missing Link. But those films were not particularly successful for a variety of reasons. But watching Coraline come out and do, for a re-release, Avatar business, got me wondering, is there some kind of generational nostalgia for people your age for Lakia? So if and when they do start making new movies, generically, will you show up? And I dare not hope, but it got me very optimistic. But so is if I may, without you having to speak for anyone besides yourselves, are we fans of Lakia? Or are we just really like Coraline and don't care who made it because that you're normal?
I would probably say just fans of Coraline.
That's
for
fair.
me personally.
No,
I agree.
And in a sane ecosystem, that's totally normal. People don't care that, oh boy, we're going to go see this new Warner Brothers movie. I mean, Disney has that a little bit, A24, I think, with film nerds. But otherwise, most studios are not brands unto themselves. They'd like to be. They all pretended they were in the early 2020s when they were launching streaming services. But so generic, boring question. Favorite movie? In whatever order you want. I don't care. And there's no wrong answer unless you pick Scream 4.
Just go with it.
Buzz off.
What was that?
Personally, Indiana Jones and the Temple. The second one.
The second one, yes. I
Yes.
just did a commentary of that with colleagues of mine. Yeah, and yeah, it's a terrific action picture. It's nice because like it was a prequel, but back before that meant anything other than just we want to set this before the last one so you can be a bit more of a rogue, or like we want an excuse, not because we don't necessarily want to bring Karen Allen back, but we don't want to explain why she's not there, so we'll just set it 2 years earlier. But I'm the weirdo that actually likes Last Crusade best, which I'm not saying I'm correct, but for me, just offhand, 3, 1, 2, 4, 5. Who wants to go next?
I love Just Go With It. Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston.
Fair
I
enough.
love the rom-com.
Yeah, I have no quips about that one. I saw it once, I liked it, and it's like it was toward the end of when they were what generically called butts and seats draws, which is that people would go to see a movie that had a somewhat interesting presence just because they liked the actors in it, which is something that I don't know if any of you are old enough to have grown up with any of that, because that's something that basically started going away around 2015-ish. So, and not to get on one of my soapboxes, but that's one of the issues that the industry is dealing with, which is that when people used to show up for a person in a movie that looked cute, they would see original movies, they would see new to you adaptations. Back in the day, Will Smith as a non-toxic pickup artist was enough to make Hitch a blockbuster. Now that character only works commercially when he's playing the genie in Aladdin. So anyway, sure.
Okay. I'll go. Most of I feel like I like a range of everything, but I'm a Marvel fanatic, so I would probably have to go with probably Civil War. Captain America Civil War.
Fair enough. So that's an interesting question. Are kids your age still into the MCU? And I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer to that. Then
yeah, I have
what's going on in the last few years? I mean, I have my own theories, but I want to hear yours in case I'm wrong.
I feel like there's some things. There's some shows that I feel like especially with my age group, I feel like Innocence fell off, whereas like no one's really watching it. But then at the same time, there's so it's mainly with the shows, I feel like. I feel like the movies are still drawing people out, but with the shows, like I know WandaVision was one that I was here with my friends and I loved it. I binge watched it till like 3 a.m. Absolutely loved it. Loki was another one that people really loved to where it actually got season 2. Falcon and Winter Soldier, that's one that I really love. And that one was, I feel like among like my peers was kind of in the middle. And then there's other series that a lot of my peers don't really like as much. But I feel like the movies are what's starting to get people back into it. Of course, they're bringing RDJ back, which I feel like is going to be pretty big for them in terms of rebranding, in a sense, the MCU, since they're kind of trying to make a new Avengers in a sense. So I feel like they had their little dip, but I feel like they're getting back up there.
Are you as a whole generally excited for Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, or are those just placeholders until we get to Doomsday next year?
I'll start.
Sure.
Fantastic Four, I hadn't really heard a whole lot about originally. It was like one of those movies that I was like, are they really doing it? I'm personally excited for that now. And for Thunderbolts has been on my list since I first found out about it, and I'm like really, really, really excited to see it. It's like one of my top movies for this year, honestly. The commercial looks great. I'm just excited to see what they actually end up doing with it, because I feel like they had all those movies and like even the shows that were kind of like the filler shows leading up to Brave New World and then now Thunderbolts. So I'm really excited for Thunderbolts. And Fantastic Four is leading into Doomsday, so I think that'll be cool.
So we've been told.
Yeah.
Does anyone care about Superman? Oh, fair enough. Just because my feeling is it looks good. I like James Gunn. Looks big and brash, colorful, blah, blah, blah. My thing is that I've always felt that Superman is one of those characters that's more known than obsessed upon. Like, just
I
because you
agree.
know who Robin Hood, King Arthur, Peter Pan, and Snow White are, doesn't mean you want a big movie about them.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that they can't be successful if you create something that, again, is interesting unto itself. But we'll see if they do that. I mean, I grew up liking Superman, blah, 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 but like, we haven't had an overly successful Superman movie since Superman 2 when I was 1 year old. I mean, whether you like the other ones, regardless, I mean, people like Man of Steel, people like Superman Returns, but commercially they were not particularly successful. Same thing with Fantastic Four. I mean, one of the reasons I'm frankly worried about this summer commercially is like two of the presumed biggest movies of the summer are Fantastic Four and Superman, which are two superhero properties that Hollywood has tried to reboot several times in the last 20 years to no success. So it's like they're kind of hoping that like the third or fourth time is the charm. I hope it is. But when you talk about movies, whether movies or the industry overall, with your peers, A, do they care? B, do you? And C, what are their thoughts on it as just civilians?
That's Minecraft.
Sorry, your audio is coming in a little odd. There's a delay, and there seems to be. I apologize.
How is this?
Oh, it's perfect. If you could live
Okay.
with that, I don't
So
want to put you on the. Okay.
sorry about that.
No,
Okay.
I do. It happens to me all the time.
So I've noticed, with my generation, with our generation, um, we were talking about Minecraft. People want to go to these movies, not for um, they want to go for spectacle. They want to go for like excitement. They want to go for people throwing popcorn. We've seen this multiple times. Uh, yeah, I mean, we're seeing it in Minecraft. People want to hear about movies from social media. People want to go and partake in these trends. Another example other than Minecraft is the Minions movie when people are showing up in suits from a few years ago. Yep, people to a certain generation, films have become um, only valuable when they're trendy. I would argue, when a meme can come out of it. So yeah, sometimes it's difficult to find somebody who's seen a solid movie, and one that, doesn't have some gag in it all over the internet.
No, that is entirely fair, and it's just the way that social media and or personal online branding has sort of changed. I mean, yeah, to a certain extent, I imagine there are people that see a movie only if it can allow them to post something of value on their personal Instagram, TikTok, whatever. I say that without judgment. I mean, it's if my generation had that stuff, I'm sure we'd be doing the same thing. I always say when people, get off your screens or whatever, it's like, look, when I was a kid, they'd say, stop playing Nintendo and go out and play baseball. I was like, come on. If you had a Nintendo at my age, you'd be inside playing Nintendo too. You just didn't have it, so you had to play stickball. But so yeah, and I think to a certain extent, that is one way to still make at least some movies cultural events, is they create these fear of missing out moments almost. And again, it doesn't just have to be for franchisee titles like Minecraft or Mario Brothers or Minions. Again, I would argue, It Ends With Us is a good example of one that was kind of an event to people that aren't necessarily going to scream chicken jockey at the screen. Although if there's someone, what's the joke? Get you a girl that can do both, I guess. I don't know. Is it appropriate? I'm not sure. But I'll take it, because if Carlene Hoover's a mainstream author, a bankable author, then we might actually start getting more pot boilers in theaters again. But are there, I mean, obviously you're here because you want the whole pie in terms of the cinematic experience. What do you like seeing in theaters? And and the answer could just be the obvious stuff, but in case it's not, I mean, what interests you in terms of what's worth a trip to the multiplex, whether for business or pleasure?
Yeah.
Miss Juliana.
Oh,
I especially love like action or thriller movies in the theaters because then the sound is a lot louder and it's more intense and the whole vibe in the room is like catered to the movie. And I love watching animated movies on or in theaters, but I feel like when it's action, it's just so much more present and energetic. And I love those types of movies on the screen.
And when you say action, I assume you mean fantastical action and fisticuffs.
Yes.
Oh, and I mean, that should be an obvious distinction, but for some people, like, because there were so many fantastical franchises in the 2010s, there are people that, maybe have never seen an old school run and gunner. And that's, again, whatever. That's not a criticism. I will say I took my daughter to The Accountant 2 last night, and it's pretty good for that kind of thing. Let's see. She was disappointed by the lack of taxes, because in the first film he very much is an accountant to the mob, and that plays into his persona. And this time it's just almost a tangential detail. But anyway,
sorry.
I don't know, either or.
I went and I saw The Amateur like a week ago, and it's a crazy good movie to see in theaters.
Yes, I took my wife to that one. They had it wasn't a press screening, it was an early age sneak, which I love because you see it early enough to write a review and I don't have to drive an hour down to Santa Monica or Hollywood. Like win-win. But no, and that one opened better than I was expecting. So I do wonder, is there still a hunger, a desire for that kind of movie if the audience is aware that it exists? And this is something that maybe all of you can speak to. Generically speaking, for me, the biggest problem with marketing movies that aren't tentpoles is, in the proverbial olden days, the easiest way to get people to become aware of your movie is watching the trailer for that movie in front of another movie, or seeing the TV spot in front of a television before a television show, or seeing a print ad in a newspaper or a magazine. As you know, this is a generation, by choice or otherwise, it's not your fault all the newspapers got bought up by conglomerates, where a lot of people, far fewer people see non-tentpoles in theaters. Far fewer people watch conventional linear commercial television. Or if they do, they skip the commercials with their DVRs. And far fewer people read physical magazines and newspapers. So how do people your age become aware of what's out, let alone become interested in what's out? Because, in in the good old days, forgive me, marketing was about creating interest, because awareness almost went without saying. You had a large group of people that wanted to go to the movies because they wanted to go to the movies. And so the goal was to make them sure that those people chose your movie instead of somebody else's film. Now, I would argue, just getting people to be aware of something is 90% of the game. So I guess my question, and I'll take as many answers as I can get here, for people in and around your generation, how do you become aware of films? I'll wait on the follow-up question, but I do have a follow-up on that one.
I feel like most of it comes from partially, like I think what Daniel was saying about how it's a lot of like the memes and stuff. So if it's something like a Minecraft movie, obviously we see all the memes, so then it gets people to want to see it. Another strategy I tend to see is they make shorter videos, in a sense. Like, for example, I see stuff about Thunderbolts all the time, whether it's on shorts or even if it is an ad. It's usually like a 5-second ad, or they have some kind of like sponsorship or something short to where it's like you don't want to skip it, or where you can't skip it, but it still is enough to grab your attention. And they do still play like the trailers at the beginning of the movies, which is even what's gotten me to see certain movies or to want to see certain movies. So I feel like it's most of that like promotion between, like, whether it's memes or something like that, or some kind of like short little video that's long enough to keep someone's attention, like on TikTok or YouTube, something like that.
agree with Tiana. You know, I think a lot of it is also like that in indirect movie marketing, we see Minecraft has done it a lot with having Minecraft with partnership with McDonald's, for example, that's gotten a lot of fans. A one stat that I really was shocked by, I think Barbie had a 145 million or like overall budget, and they spent at least 100 million, I believe, like on marketing itself. And they did a really great job with that. And I think a lot of it is less the movie and more marketing, especially with influencers and partnerships with brands and such.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's an ongoing debate right now within the film critic and film press circle because we see access to talent and access to screenings getting sort of where influencers get the first bids over film critics and film press. And on one hand, oh, that's terrible. They're not film journalists. They're not professionals, blah, blah, blah. But on the other hand, I mean, what's going to get people aware of this product? Is it going to be some deep dive interview in the Hollywood Reporter that gets mostly read by people in the industry? Or is it going to be people who have a decent TikTok audience or YouTube audience that's, I would argue, also made up of people outside the bubble? And, you know, we're all to a certain extent in the bubble. Obviously, we live outside of it, but, you know, we got, you know, in terms of preaching the unconverted, as I said, I call them civilians, so to speak. You know, civilians don't care about what was or wasn't going on with, you know, I'm trying to think of an example that isn't going to get into politics. Okay, here's one. Civilians don't care about that one scene in Peter Rabbit where he threw a poison raspberry into the guy's throat, and there was like a week of online conjecture about how problematic it was. The film still legged out like a crazy, you know, because people didn't care. They just showed up anyway. So many of the things that get discussed and discoursed about in the quote unquote mainstream media, especially online, don't matter to the real world. Anyway, I'm lecturing. That's not what I came here to do. I guess my follow-up question would be, okay, so we get the awareness, hopefully the interest from, you know, social media in a nutshell. How effective is that in getting awareness for films that aren't in some way pre-sold? Because, you know, as you know, I mean, Hollywood's done a pretty good job of releasing original or new to you adaptations in the first few months of this year. You know, Companion, One of Them Days, Drop, Novocaine, except, you know, whether you like these movies or not, whatever. But most of them have done, at best, just good enough business. So it's like Hollywood's giving you what we say we want, but we're not showing up. That's not a new problem. I've been whining about that since 2016. But right now, Hollywood, I think, is really trying to get out of the glut of IP for the sake of IP. And so, how, you know, if you had any advice to give to Hollywood's marketing people in terms of getting casual, regular, younger audiences aware of movies like The Amateur or The Accountant 2 or whatever, how do we get these films in front of their eyeballs before it's too late?
I would say definitely start with things that are shorter, especially with the attention span these days. Like I said, when it's shorter, it's easier for you not to skip it because usually they move quick. Make sure that it's still interesting though, you know, it still gets the point across. Also, I agree with like even with Ashleigh, where it's like the partnerships, things like the Minecraft movie with McDonald's, I know Thunderbolts with I think Mike and Ike's, things like that draw attention. It's typically food, but things like that draw attention where you have partnerships with things that kids love, kids always use. And then also with like the influencers. Usually I feel like when it's big names, like I think you mentioned One of Them Days, like it's like Keke Palmer, SZA, you know, even if the people aren't in your movie, still getting those names to help promote it and say, oh, you should go see this. So I feel like it's about the people that you have promoting it, making sure that it's shorter, something that's still attention grabbing, but our attention spans are I believe like scientifically shorter now, because of like TikTok and things like that. So making sure that it's shorter, but still make it interesting, make it attention grabbing, something that someone young would be like, oh, this looks fun. Or if they're into horror, this looks scary. Something that they'll want to see.
That makes sense. And yeah, it's not your fault that society created a world where you can't leave your smartphone in the car to get gas even if you wanted to. But so obviously I've been talking a lot about, sort of a generic, how do kids today feel about mainstream popular cinema? You already mentioned that Miss Peter liked action films. What kind of genres do you and yours like?
I can go again. I typically lean more towards like some kind of like action or more like fantasy. I'm not a fan of horror movies. I like some kind of like action or like fantasy movie or something that is something that I'm interested in. Like I think the last time I went to the movies, I might have went again after that, but last time I really remember I saw Sonic 3, Wicked, and Lion King in one day. And think yeah, it was a really long time of
Impressed.
movies. But like I like movies like that, something that has action in it, something with a little bit of or action more like Sonic, something with fantasy or musicals. I'm also really into musicals like Wicked, and something like Lion King, something or not the Lion King, it was Mufasa. Something like Mufasa where it's like something that I kind of grew up with. So it's like, oh, this looks cool. This is something new. And I feel like all those are kind of in a sense nostalgic for me because obviously love Broadway. So it's like Wicked's something I wanted to see. Love the other Sonic movies and even the games. So also something I wanted to see. So I feel like I like things that are in the mix of like action, fantasy, and nostalgia, musicals, things like that. Music definitely captures a lot of attention in movies. So
I would also like to add that something that I think really catches like our generation is, as Tiana was mentioning, nostalgic things or musical, or even when movies aren't one specific genre, like not only action, but also horror or, comedic. Like, I feel like when there's a hybrid of genres that really attracts our attention and also like nostalgia and stuff.
yeah,
For
and that'll
stuff that
get
was like
different
the
kinds of people.
2010s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying I
Sorry.
agree with Juliana. That'll also get different kinds of people in there, to where you're not just getting someone who likes one specific genre. You're getting people who like horror, and then you're also getting the people who like action, and you're also getting people who like fantasy, things like that.
Um, I apologize. Mr. Salem thought he would look like he was about to say something. But if you're not, I will ignore and move on.
Oh, can I?
Sure.
Okay, I feel like a good movie is, I mean, this kind of goes back to a little bit of the marketing conversation, but I feel like a good movie is not enough to draw, an audience anymore. It's not enough to fill a theater because we have watched it time and time again. Incredible movies just getting overlooked and, um, ending their theatrical run early, going straight to streaming or home video. And it's funny because we live in kind of like we live in times where people need a draw that's like maybe a trendy actor, or as I said, a meme, or a song, as somebody said, or just something on social media. A good movie is not enough anymore. It has to be a good or even bad movie, and then it has to be trendy.
Yeah,
Who
I agree.
are
That made me think of. Oh, go ahead.
no, go
Oh,
ahead.
that also made me think of like with the music, like with Deadpool and Wolverine using "Bye Bye Bye." That was something that made it. I mean, it was already like a kind of popular because of like the names in it, but that was something on social media that really made it blow up.
Who are people that are trendy in terms of actual actors and actresses?
Trendy.
I guess,
I mean,
if
I feel
anyone,
like
the answer may be nope. Because
no, I
the
feel like
notion of the movie stars. Sorry, go ahead.
I feel like one name I hear a lot is probably like a Ryan Reynolds. I tend to hear him a lot. Trying to think. I feel like Chris Pratt is in everything. In a sense, mainly he's kind of going into animation, but I feel like he's someone kind of in everything. Obviously, if you go back a bit further, Dwayne Johnson was also someone who was like kind of in everything. Um, Other
He
names I
used to be
hear like
cool.
Michael B. Jordan. Michael B. Jordan's in it. A lot of mainly my female friends, but a lot of people will go out to see it. So I feel like there are still those names that's like as soon as you hear it, you want to go see it.
Are people in your respective peer groups excited for Sinners? I mean, as in they're going to go race out and see it?
I haven't heard. I have not heard anything from my friend group. I feel like everyone right now. Oh, sorry. I feel like everyone right now is on Minecraft movies still.
Fair.
Mhm.
I
Um,
mean, it's it's an R-rated period vampire picture, so it's not
right,
like
right.
um. Sorry, you were saying. Mr.
Oh no,
Sims.
I was just agreeing with you. I think I saw Daniel.
No,
Oh,
I
sorry.
absolutely thrilled for Sinners, but I would be lying if I said I have heard a single person talk about it in real life.
Yeah.
And that is like Sinners, for example, that is a totally original concept from Ryan Coogler. Um, you know, I I I worry about how it's gonna do. Yeah.
Too. I've seen it. It's good, but again, it's. I could easily see it being one of those movies that film critics actually like more than regular audiences. And that's not even a criticism of the movie itself. It's just it's a very, very well made genre picture. But is that enough? I'd be more optimistic if it came out like 2 years after Black Panther, not 7 years after Black Panther.
Yeah, like a
And I think that's a
Creed.
problem with the industry overall, which is that back in the day, Chris Nolan makes Batman Begins and he gets to make The Prestige a year and a half later. Tim Burton makes the first Batman in 1989 and he gets to make Edward Scissorhands a year and a half later. And that's part of it's COVID strikes, et cetera, et cetera. But again, I mean, it's literally a generation later. Um, but I hope so because again, it's good. It's the kind of film we all say that we want. Um, but I had a thought, but I lost it. So I'm gonna just. Does anyone want to ask me a question? And I'm not promising I'm going to give a super inspired answer, but I'm open. So I'm kind of curious what's on your minds.
Um, I guess I could ask like from your perspective, because like you asked us a lot, like with like our generation, like how we perceive like hearing about movies, and all that, which is different for us because most times it's from like social media and things, but like from your perspective, like how do you see a lot of the movies? Because you seem to like you see a lot of movies, so like how do you tend to uh perceive like not the clout, but like how like they promote the movies and the recognition, I guess, that they're getting.
I think for me, the biggest problem is, not to, is awareness. Because, you look on some movie comes out that got great reviews and it doesn't do well. Like, oh, there was something wrong with the marketing. Why didn't they market this? It's like, no, they probably spent a lot of money marketing on this. And if you watch on a piece by piece basis, the trailers were good. The TV spots were good. The interviews were interesting. But if that stuff wasn't getting out into the real world, it's the example I like to give is like in early 2023, Blumhouse and Universal had like what, a dozen viral TikTok dances popping up at random spots, and they have to do a dozen to get the awareness that once upon a time maybe one or two would have gotten. And again, this is nobody's fault. It's we don't have what we call a monoculture anymore. I mean, it's a fractured pop culture. Everybody likes their own stuff, and there's enough out there that everyone can basically, if they choose to, live in their own entertainment bubble and never leave. And that's not even a criticism. It's entertainment. It's it's not always meant to be of. In the same way, I don't care about sports. I don't expect people to obsess about movies the way I might or you might. But I do think when for some people in the industry that have skin in the game, they have to understand that just creating awareness of this stuff, especially when it's not a pre-sold property, that kind of has to be explained a little bit. that requires a lot more work and frankly a little luck. And horror, people will still show up to high concept horror at a theatrical level compared to most comedies, rom-coms, thrillers, dramas, whatever. My big theory on that is that the horror media, horror films have a very, I don't mean this in a political sense, activist media, where they are very good about raising awareness about what's out there in theaters, what's out there on a streaming service like Shudder, what's coming to VOD. And if it's good, they'll tell you it's good. If it's bad, they'll tell you it's bad. But they tell you this thing exists and this should catch your interest. If this should catch your awareness, if not your interest. And because of that, people are aware that horror movies are coming down the pike. And when they go to see A Quiet Place Day One, they'll see trailers in theaters for like a half a dozen other horror films, which is something that just doesn't exist for any other genre other than the quote unquote mega budget tentpole. And I wish Blumhouse or somebody not, otherwise had tried the Blumhouse model with like romantic comedies or spy thrillers or just movies. And I don't know whether it would have worked, but it would have been worth a shot. Because right now, as you know, because you've grown up in this, a movie like The Amateur existing at a mainstream theatrical level is almost a miracle. The fact of it doing well is even more of a holy crap, how did that happen? Pardon my French. And because it's people don't see, people prioritize, generally speaking, people prioritize marquee characters, Harry Potter, Katniss, Freddie Mercury, Mario, whatever, Spider-Man, whatever, over actors and actresses. So there's less likely to take a chance on something new to them. And when I say new to you, I mean like, yes, Bullet Train is based in a book, but I'm pretty sure 99% of the people go to the theaters have not read the Japanese novel it's based on, including me. So that's okay. And like The Amateur is a remake of a 1981 thriller, which was based on a book written the same year. And unless you care, you probably didn't know that. And that's okay, because it's new to you. And that's why I was like weirdly heartened by the halfway decent success of Speak No Evil last October, which was a remake of, I believe, a Danish thriller. And the changes are made. I'm not going to go to details if you ever end up watching either of them, but I guarantee 99% of the people that walked into the theater that pushed that $15 million horror film to 75 million worldwide either were not aware of the original film or at least had not seen the original film. So for them, it was new to you. And that's fine. Again, that used to be enough. And I do see the industry trying in terms of releasing these just a movies somewhat more regularly than I think they've been since 2019. Partially because they got burned so much in the late 2010s when they were just giving movies that what we say we want, Late Night, Widows, The Hate You Give, Game Night, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they were either bombing or they were performing far worse than what would have been normal even in the early 2010s. I mean, just, and I only know this because I watched this happen in real time, the extent to which the commercial bottom fell out for the what I call studio programmer, which is just a movie. It's got people, it's about, a neat plot. It's not necessarily based on some giant property or whatever. Just sort of plummeted what was possible or realistic or expected for that movie commercially almost overnight in late 2015, early 2016, because that's when you had a generation of casual moviegoers that gravitated to streaming. And again, I don't say that as a criticism. Streaming became affordable and easy to access. Wireless broadband became available in enough of the world that was an easy thing to do as long as you had a credit card. Home theater entertainment systems became affordable. So when you're living somewhere without a guaranteed multiplex or two, for you, waiting 3 weeks, 3 to 6, 7 weeks to see that movie for $5 to $20 a pop on a 50-inch TV with a 3.1 Dolby soundbar, that's good enough. especially if you have a bunch of, if you're in a big family. And so I don't blame the people that walked. Well, I do blame some of them. I blame the people that don't have kids that could easily spend $10 to see a movie in a theater, because those are the kind of movies that got knocked down so brutally over the last decade. The stuff like Wonka that you take a family of 5 and you spend 150 with tickets and concessions and parking. Those movies are still doing fine. It's getting kids to see Wicked isn't an issue. It's getting the date night crowd to see The Fall Guy that's the challenge, or Civil War Challengers or whatever. Anyway, end of rant. I apologize. How did you get involved in this particular program?
You guys can go first. I kind of touched on. Well, actually, I'll just go because I'm already talking. Like as I was kind of saying, I've been doing journalism since I was 7. So I kind of already was in the business in a sense. And I was looking for more to get to do with like interviews, and I love movies. And found Kids First and was like, this is perfect chance for me to be able to watch movies, be able to do interviews on them, be able to make those connections. So I feel like that's mainly what it came from. It was more like a love and having a passion for what I was already doing.
Mine is pretty similar. I'm a big movie goer, and I love like going in theaters, more than streaming at home. And writing reviews on movies, like I always have my opinions, and I love to share like what I think about a movie afterwards with whoever I'm with. And so when I found Kids First, that was just another way to like share what I thought about the movie. And I thought that was an amazing experience. And now it's come with interviewing and screenings and so much more.
As Juliana said, I mean, there's this, after seeing a movie, there's this like, I like crave the feeling of talking about that movie ad nauseum. And my mom told me about Kids First. She had heard of it somehow, and it just seemed like the perfect opportunity to kind of, express my feelings about what I watch.
No, that makes sense. I mean, that's how I started doing this. I mean, before I was a box office nerd, I was a film critic, as most of us are. I mean, most of us don't start, when we're kids, even if we're aware of the industry, we don't start writing like box office reports for 10, whatever. We start with, we saw this movie, we want to write about why it worked for us. And I grew up reading, Roger Ebert, Gene Siskel, Leonard Maltin, people that you may or may not have heard of, and that's fine. And then when I was in high school, college, I was starting reading basically the first generation of online film journalists. Again, people that may or may not be on your radar, and that's fine. Dave Bolland, Sasha Stone, Jeff Wells. Some of them are still at it, some of them are not. And I just always had a weird interest in the financials, even if it was just the box office, why this movie made money, why it didn't, what went well, what, expectations, marketing, whatever. And of course, it was a lot easier when there was a wider variety of films out there and wide theatrical release that could be expected to make money. Because, the answer every week wasn't always, people don't go to see movies anymore, and that's really all there is. And it was easier to Monday morning quarterback when every movie had, I would argue, a relative equal chance at relative success in terms of what that film needed to do to be profitable, or to be profitable enough to say, hey, let's make another like this. Because that's the only reason box office matters from an artistic point of view, is that if a film does well, the industry says, oh, people might want to see more like this. Mm-hmm. And at its core level, for better or worse, and Wonder Woman comes out and they're like, oh, wait, you mean women like seeing superhero action movies? But that one from 30 years ago that nobody liked did badly. I thought that was gospel. And it's the unfortunate thing is that conventional wisdom about what makes money in Hollywood is far more powerful than what actually makes money in Hollywood. So it's like we have to keep relearning these same lessons over and over and over. It's like, oh no, boys don't want to show up to Twilight. Who cares? Because tons and tons of women did. Oh no, boys aren't going to be interested in Barbie. Who cares? Because like a gajillion women did. It was the same thing with Wicked. And anyway, I'm on a rant again. I'm sorry. I do that.
You're good.
What are you looking forward to seeing this summer? In whatever order you wish.
I feel like I've talked a lot, so I'm gonna let y'all go first.
Okay.
I'm actually pretty interested in seeing the Superman movie. Just because I'm a huge fan of superheroes and, like I said, action and stuff like that. And when I went to see the Minecraft movie, I saw the trailer for the Superman movie. And at first I was like, wow, this is a pretty long trailer, but then this huge set came and it hooked me. So now I'm really excited to see that movie this summer.
Had you seen the trailer that dropped back in like January beforehand or December?
No, I
So
just
this
saw
was your
the
first
one.
look. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm slightly envious. Your turn.
I might be, I hope I'm not going a little bit into the fall. I might be. But
I don't care.
my
That's fine.
most anticipated movie is Knives Out 3.
Fair. And yeah, that's probably going to be, I'm guessing, yeah, fall. I don't know when because it's Netflix.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, those films are just incredible. They're brilliant. I can't wait.
Do you watch Poker Face on Peacock?
I do watch Poker
Okay.
Face.
Then I don't need to recommend it.
The second season is coming out. I can't wait for that. Yeah.
I am looking for, I mean, obviously I am curious, at least from a cultural point of view, for Superman and Thunderbolts. And, you know, I've seen How to Train Your Dragon already. It's fine. It's very well made. It's very well acted. It's very handsomely staged. But for me, there's still a certain weird remove where it's like, I've seen this movie already. And there's not enough that's different about it to make, for me anyway, for it to stand out. Now, again, I for people that want a live action recreation, it's going to be very popular. It's going to make a lot of money and fine, whatever. Among horror films, Bring Her Back looks weirdly terrifying to me. I really liked Talk to Me. That was one of my favorite, breakout indie horror films of the last few years. So the same directing duo whose names escape me, forgive me. I like Wes Anderson. I still do. So I'm looking forward to The Phoenician Physician or I'm a terrible person. That's why I read that. Thank you. And I'm trying to think what else is coming out. I'm curious. My son loves the Jurassic movie, so I'm looking forward to that. And I'm hoping against hope that Elio is good and people show up, because I'll try not to make this another rant, but I will never not be angry that Disney took a slew of terrific, original, and in some cases very inclusive animated movies and basically used them as cannon fodder for the streaming war, and then complained that people don't show up to original animated films anymore. Like, you put Soul on Disney Plus, forgive me for not treating it like a normal theatrical release. But anyway, like, it's sorry, I'm getting cranky, but like, again, they dropped those films on, Luca Turning Red and Soul on Disney Plus to no good end, because shocker, the streaming war was a house of cards. And then the big theatrical one was Lightyear. Nobody thought that was a good idea because nobody showed up to Solo. Just like, even though it was pretty good, nobody showed up to Transformers 1 or Furiosa, because quality notwithstanding, the general audiences do not care about the prequel origin story of the supporting character from this franchise you like, played by a different actor than the one that you associate with that character. And again, it in a vacuum, Lightyear is interesting. It's a riff on the black hole. I think it's almost like a weird metaphor for the current generation of Pixar reckoning with the reasons why John Lasseter is no longer at the company. But commercially, nobody gave a darn. So I'm hoping Elio breaks out.
I'm saying this because I think it tells us something about where we're at right now. I didn't want to copy Juliana, but I was going to say Superman 2, and I think that is indicative of how important this movie is right now. I mean, obviously, aside from being starting its own universe, I think, and James Gunn, bringing a new life into the character, I think we need something this summer that will inspire hope and just like unity and optimism. So, yeah, I just want to add that.
Do mainstream movies of that nature still do that in 2025? And I'm not asking to be a rhetorical schmuck. It just, I was very happy watching Wonder Woman kick butt in 2017 and see that being seen as sort of the movie we need right now, blah, blah, blah. But I just, as a cynical pessimist, and it's not just that. I mean, I remember tons and tons of people showing up to Zootopia and then, without getting into politics, making a choice at the ballot box that perhaps implies they weren't paying that much attention. Or, if I may be slightly more cartoonish about it, spending $1.2 billion on Beauty and the Beast months after voting for President Gaston. And so, yes, I do think Warner Brothers and friends are absolutely going to sell Superman as the movie we need right now. And I hope that James Gunn and friends try to do that. I mean, I was kind of hoping 10 years ago with Man of Steel that, like, the big new idea for Superman was, let's take him back to his, FDR, beat up the wife beaters and take out the corrupt coal owners, FDR liberalism. And if I may be really silly here, I kind of hope that would acknowledge that as much as I love the Richard Donner movie from 1978, that's when we first started looking at Superman as a Christ parable. Before that, it was a Moses parable. As you know, it was made by two Jews in Cleveland. And I was kind of hoping that Man of Steel would sort of, the joke I was making at the time was that my headline was going to be, review, Man of Steel gives Superman back to the Jews. I'm Jewish for what that's worth. Very cranky about it these days, but whatever. And obviously that was not the case. It was the story that Zack Snyder, Dave Goyer, and Chris Nolan want to tell was more of a first contact story with a third act that was so violent it felt like a kaiju picture. Which isn't even a criticism. My only issue with Man of Steel is that he's the one that touches the button that brings Zod back to Earth. If it was anyone else that touches that button, then he's not responsible for everybody that gets killed in the third act. But I digress.
Yeah, I feel like I was gonna say, like, I feel like everything nowadays kind of needs that revival movie. Like, from YouTube being excited about Superman, maybe I'll go see it. I'm more a Marvel fan than a DC fan, but it still sounds like it's gonna be something interesting. Like, I feel like a lot of studios kind of need that revival. Like, I feel like with Marvel, what they're trying to do with Doomsday is trying to make Doomsday the revival film that kind of gets everyone back. As you guys are saying with Superman, kind of making that the revival. I do also want to go back to the question about the movies that we want to see. But still being here, yeah, I feel like the revival movies are definitely what's gonna get people back. Something that seems interesting enough to where it's like, okay, the people like this, we did this, people didn't really like it. So now we're gonna kind of bring back, which I feel like a lot of studios are doing, we're gonna kind of bring back what seemed to be pretty good and maybe put a new spin or something on it. And I feel like that works. Yeah.
The main reason I'm slightly optimistic for Superman, and again, I assume it will be a good movie. This has nothing to do with quality. It does look new and different, even though it's another Superman movie, in a way that so far, like, Jurassic World doesn't, and Thunderbolts doesn't, and frankly, a lot of these legacy sequels, like I Know What You Did Last Summer or Karate Kid Legends, doesn't. Even though it's a reboot, it's a revamp, Superman still looks new and different compared to everything else, which maybe that's a broader criticism right there, but whatever. We've been talking a lot about mainstream cinema, and I sometimes make that mistake because, with the caveat that I don't know what you see on the regular, how old you are, what you're allowed to see. I don't want to be weird about that. But in terms of films that were in the awards race over the last few years, Oscar movies, for lack of a better word, what did you see and what did you like, if I may?
I feel like in terms of the bigger ones, like I saw Wicked. Like I said, I'm also sorry, I'm also a Broadway fanatic, so I loved getting to see Wicked. That was really good. It was really long, but it was really good. I feel like it was worth the watch. And now it's on Peacock, so a lot of people are able to watch it that way. Um, I think Mufasa was also one of the ones that was up a lot. It was also a really good movie. I think that was one that some people were kind of iffy on, but then that was another one that like with Aaron Pierre being on the Jennifer Hudson show, that it also got more the song's just playing in my head now. But like a lot more people started to become
Me too now.
interested.
Thank you.
Of course. But
No,
a
I like
lot
that
more
one more than I
people.
expected to. Although it's Barry Jenkins, so I like him. So sorry, I interrupted you. Is
Yeah.
Aaron Pierre a name that people in your generation know? Is he going to become like the first made from Netflix movie star? Because Rebel
I
Ridge kind of had a footprint that you don't usually see in Netflix originals
Yeah,
for
Rebel
good
Ridge is
reason, but
actually
nonetheless.
yeah,
Yeah.
Rebel Ridge was actually good. I feel like Aaron Pierre, he's kind of starting to get in. I feel like he's starting to get in there. He's starting to make his mark. I think a while ago, even though I know some of my friends are kind of like, that's weird, but I feel like he's gonna kind of start branching into like a Michael B. Jordan type range. And this is just my thoughts.
Yeah.
Where I feel like with the type of movies that he's starting to do and the attention he's getting from like things like the Jennifer Hudson show, I feel like he's starting to get into there where it's like people are starting to like him, obviously, uh, women, and all that. So I feel like he's gonna kind of, I feel like he's gonna
Well,
kind of
no, I
start
mean,
going onto that.
first of all, never apologize for your thirst.
Oh
Second
my
of
God,
all, well, okay,
that's
let me just be
terrible.
vulgar for a second. In the old days, most people that we consider movie stars got their start as being heartthrobs first. Antonio
Right.
Banderas, Tom Cruise, Leonardo DiCaprio, Denzel Washington,
Yeah.
Julia Roberts, Sandra Bullock, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think one of the issues with the lack of new stars, or at least bankable new stars, in the mid to late 2000s through the end of the 2010s was that we didn't have a lot of rom-coms and romantic thrillers and things like that. And something that I'd notice is that you'd see, like, for example, Independence Day Resurgence, not my favorite movie. If you like it, fine, whatever. Liam Hemsworth is in that, and he is not giving what I would call a breakout movie star performance, partially because the movie doesn't really let
Yeah.
him do that. There's like, this guy, they think he's a star, but then you go and you watch something like Isn't It Romantic? Not a great movie, but give me a minute. Or something like The Dressmaker with Kate Winslet, where he's playing a romantic lead and he's just charismatic as heck. So it's like when you let the Glenn Powells and the Sydney Sweeneys and the Jenna Ortegas and the Timothy Chalamet's be stereotypical romantic movie stars with, all due respect, age-wise sex appeal, that's how you get stars. Because that's, it's and I think a big reason why the huge generation of the 2010s people didn't break out is because they were never allowed to be movie stars in that sense. So yeah, sorry, long way of saying, it's yes, that is a part that should be a part of the movie star equation, and never
But
apologize for that. I mean, yes, Supergirl was good, but it also had Calista Flockhart of Ally McBeal, wearing nerd glasses and dressed in semi-formal Lois Lane gear. Of course, that was interesting to me, and age appropriate because she's about my age, maybe a little older. But and so here's a question, if I may, and again, we hear all the time about people of quote unquote your generation that don't want intimacy. I'm not just talking about just sex. I mean, like, intimacy, courtship, anything beyond he kisses the girl at the end of the third act after saving the day kind of romance. Is that true, or is that just the internet pontificating, or just people, kids lying when adults ask them about this stuff because that's weird. I don't want to talk to grown-ups about that. Or sorry, you were about to say something.
I just wanted to answer the question. I think it's 100% false. I think I have no problem with it, and I think it's just a basic theme in 99% of the content you watch. I'm confused. I saw the study, and it seems completely false to me because I'm confused why people are like pushing back on that, especially when we live in such a hedonistic times. But yeah.
I
Yeah, I feel like it's
go
more.
ahead.
I was gonna say, I feel like it is more of the point. Um, even though like I feel like I watch stuff more on the calmer side, obviously, for my age range, but I feel like it is based off my peers, like more of they want to see this, but it's like more of the parent type thing where it's like they don't want to talk about it, they don't want to see it, or they have to, in a sense, pretend like, oh, I don't want to watch that. So I feel like it is more of that it's false, but it's just really awkward.
Yeah, and I
And
think a lot of the people that I talk to about like movies with um romantic aspects, I think people are, or at least my friends and I are really excited to watch movies like that because it like gives a little, it's almost like a little glimpse of hope that maybe one day I'll have romance in the future or something
Yeah.
silly like that. But like rom-com movies like 10 Things I Hate About You, people love that movie and they love that he went after her even when she kept rejecting him. And I think that is something that is truly valued still today. So that's, yeah.
And I feel like that also plays a part in like the heartthrob aspect
Mm-hmm.
that you were talking about. Like if you have someone who's playing a main character, I can think of a few, I'm not gonna name a few, I can think of a few that if you have
by
them
all
like
means,
in
the same ones I'm
but
thinking of.
but like if you have those people who kind of get people like, oh, I like that person, then they also are in that like love romantic aspect, then it's like it attracts people to not only the actor but also more of the movie, and then even it'll help other people if they use that person. Then someone like, I know movies that I've watched where it's like, oh my god, I really love this person, now I have to see this because they've been set up like that.
Yeah, and again, that makes sense. And it's I've never understood the whole. I mean, yeah, my daughter is like that, but she also has Asperger's. And so I also wondered, like, to what extent are they like pulling a bunch of people with various, anxiety, ADHD, whatever, on the spectrum disorders that for whatever reason that's a symptom, and whatever, that's fine. Um, I mean, very slight spoiler for the accountant too, but she got slightly anxious when Ben Affleck and John Barenthal, basically paid for three prostitutes to come up to their room, but she was very relieved when it turned out that they just wanted to interrogate them for plot related reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's okay, they're not gonna. They just want to talk to him to figure out who the bad guy is. That's in a vacuum, fine, whatever. We like what we like. Um, I always find it nuts that on one hand we're always hearing that your generation are such prudes, but yet Oppenheimer made a gajillion dollars. Challengers does well. Anyone But You, which frankly I thought was terrible, but I feel it did. You're gonna tell me I'm an idiot? Go for it.
I'm sorry. I was going to bring up Anyone But You as a film.
Yes.
I frankly had to sneak into that one, but I mean
Which ticket
that's
did you buy a movie? Which movie did you buy a ticket for?
something. I don't know if it was. I don't know. I think some animated movie coming out at the time.
Probably Migration.
I It must have been Migration. I walked out of that movie literally. I'm not like that type of person, and I walked out of that movie buzzing with hope. Like I think that movie epitomizes why those
Yeah.
themes can elevate film.
That movie and Five Nights at Freddy's were like, these are two of the worst movies of the year, but I'm so happy they're doing well. Because for exactly that reason. And I do think the success of that film was like, it's an R-rated rom-com with actual R-rated content. It's like you had a generation that was, I don't know if any of you have seen The American President. It's an Aaron Sorkin movie from like 30 years ago. It's like when you're so desperate for water that you'll drink the sand. And considering how you've been starved, I don't judge you one bit for drinking the sand. Not at all. And what's the most popular TV show? Euphoria. I mean, that's last idea. I haven't seen every episode, but that's not TVY7, folks. And so I just and again, it all goes into the whole, you still need to get people to show up for a movie just to show up for a movie thing. And that's why I was happy for that. Also, because I'm happy whenever any romantic comedy succeeds in theaters, because that's the one genre that I will argue that Netflix does well in terms of original movies, in terms of films that approximate the genuine article. Now, that's just because, budget, you just need charismatic stars. Okay, I need to wrap this up. I apologize. I have been babbling nonstop. So as I do, frankly, for most interviews that I do like this, and you can each take your turn. What is one thing that you wish I had asked you, or one thing that you wanted to ask me that I didn't, and now you can make me feel bad for missing it, and I will give you a response in whatever order.
I'll start. It wasn't really anything. It was just something like I didn't get to answer. I didn't get to answer about like the summer movies and all that. Which I did want to go back to. Obviously, my top movie is Thunderbolts. But also Daniel mentioned Knives Out 3. I actually didn't know about that, but I am a fan of the first Knives Out. I've been trying to watch it, and I like they took it out Netflix, and I went crazy because I was like, I really want to watch that. And then Knives Out 2 is also a really good movie, so I am now excited for that. And another thing, I think you also were talking about like the studios and stuff. I feel like sometimes who makes the movie can play a part, like Disney. Obviously, most times if it's a Disney movie, people will go out. If it's something like we mentioned before, if it's nostalgic, people will go out. But if it's nostalgic, make sure that you make it right, because there are some movies that are like redos and all that didn't do as well. And all that. I had another point and it kind of slipped my mind. But even like we could say like Tim Burton movies get a lot of attention because he's someone who's like made a name for himself, and he kind of keeps the same style. Obviously he's not a studio, but he still makes amazing content. But I feel like this conversation went amazing.
Yeah,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course.
I really felt like this was a pretty thoughtful conversation that we had. I did want to ask you what your favorite movies and like genres were, because you asked us what those were. So
my favorite all-time movie is The Silence of the Lambs. And I guess by default, my favorite genre is probably the action thriller to a certain extent, something like The Amateur, The Accountant 2, or what have you. Some of them better than others, et cetera, et cetera. I'm interested. I do think it's interesting that Tim Burton is still culturally relevant, and I think he's someone that, by accident or not, finds a way to insert himself into the present tense every decade or so. Because I imagine lots of people that had never heard of Tim Burton watched Wednesday. It's like, oh, I care now. And yeah, he is a genre unto himself in terms of the way his movies look and feel. And like for people of our generation, he was sort of, I jokingly call him baby's first auteur, and that he was like film school in a box for like, very, very young children that otherwise had no idea how to discuss this stuff. Because like, oh, directors have signatures. Oh, you'd be like Tim Burton, and it's always a Danny Elfman score and the trees talk. Okay, I got you. It's about an outcast that does or doesn't want to fit in and blah, blah, blah. Okay, I got you there. That's a Tim Burton movie. Anyway, your turn.
I was thinking it would have been cool if we talked about well, we're here to talk about like the current condition of the film industry, and it would have been cool if we talked about that as it relates to streaming and you know, how people have kind of made that transition from one uh, piece of long form content to many pieces of shorter content. Yeah,
Yeah, there are a
Yeah,
lot of
I
more
mean, I
shows
don't.
nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
I feel
Um,
there was the one Disney made. Can't think of the name of it, but it was with all the kids on the baseball team. Um, like I feel like they're definitely making like a lot of I'll think of the name later, but like there's definitely like a lot of shorts, a lot of more short stuff now.
Yeah.
oh, absolutely, and that's a huge reason why long form cinema is in the pickle that it's in right now. Is that adults and kids have more options than ever before for their entertainment time and dollar. And if I get grouchy about the streaming revolution, it's only because I tend to think that most of these services, Peacock, Netflix, even YouTube to a certain extent, they make better TV shows than they make movies. So I
Mm,
feel as a movie nerd, I'm
yeah.
getting the short end of the stick. It's like with Netflix, like why do you TV nerds get the Diplomat, but I'm stuck with like Back in Action? It's not fair.
Mm.
Uh, but anyway, but you're not wrong, and I apologize for not overly bringing that up. I was trying to, yeah. Um, but no, this has been fun. I enjoy doing these. I hope I didn't come off as too rambling and bloviating and obnoxious. I'm always wary of that. And you can pretend and shake your head, and you can tell them I'm an idiot later. I will never find out about it.
Thank you so much for watching our Kids First reporters talk about the current state of media for kids with Scott Mendelson. Again, I'm Tiana S reporting for Kids First. Make sure to like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of our latest entertainment news for kids and families. Bye.